Hey, folks, welcome to the Profitable Sheep and Goat Production Podcast, where sheep and goat production is not just our hobby, it's our bread and butter.
Hey, welcome back, folks. It is Leon here again with the Profitable Sheep and Goat Production Podcast, and today we have Matt Nault along with us again, as well as Stan Huber from Northwood, Iowa, and we would like to welcome Stan.
Thank you. Good to be on here.
Yeah, glad to have you here. And Stan is a Savannah breeder from up there in northern Iowa, and he's going to tell us a bit today about his production system. So go ahead, Stan. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So Stan Huber here, like you mentioned, and my wife, Deetra. We live up here in northern Iowa. Just a small farm. We bought it a year and a half ago. Super trash to replace. So yeah, I've been working night and day, it seems like, to be cleaning that up and improving infrastructure, etc. But we run right now at 136 nannies. Looking to build that number. We had more and sold some down, and then we have a small feed lot where we feed out feeder kids, buy in a high percentage of those. So did about 1,000 this past year. And we're primarily forage based, is our primary goal on the feedlot side of it. It's a lot more grain, obviously, but looking at to be raising livestock style savannas. That's what I tell people. Animals that can thrive in the real world. In the goat industry, especially, I'm jealous of you sheep guys with all the data and more large scale livestock style guys, but it's just a lot of hobby breeders in this industry, and we're looking to change that, looking to raise goats that people can make money off of, that can thrive out there in the real working world. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're not selling any breeding stock. We're building that data, that information, that reliability, so that when we do start marketing these animals, we have actually hardcore information that we can give to people, that people can look at, and they can make their decisions based off of that, if that would benefit their system or not.
Hey, that sounds interesting. So I have all kinds of questions already, and we just started, but tell us a little more about your nanny. So my understanding is on your nanny goats, you're strictly forage based or pretty well forage based. And then your kids that you're finishing out, they go in a feedlot on a grain ration, which is very similar to what we're doing with sheep, actually.
Okay.
I'd be interested in knowing more about, what are you grazing your nannies? What kind of things are you grazing them on? There's this perception, especially around here, a number of people have gotten into sheep or into goats in the last couple of years here, and there's kind of this perception where don't turn them out or they'll die, which a lot of these guys are running high percentage boar goats too. Yep. So they're probably not that far from accurate, but it seems like they are made to graze and you should be able to graze them. And with that, have you considered grazing cover crops or anything? Because if you've listened to, actually, I guess that episode's not out as we're doing this interview yet, but we did an episode on grazing cover crops with sheep, and I was wondering, hey, why couldn't you do this with goats as well? So tell me about grazing your goats.
Okay, so as far as our operation, we do graze all summer long. So I like to rotate them every day. I'm huge into rotational grazing.
Good.
That's just a big priority to me. So we have some just standard pasture. I love forages as well, so I'm constantly trying to improve that, maybe plant specific species that I want. I did pick up some rented ground this past year, so we put that into a hay stand, or what I was originally thinking of going to be a hay stand, and then we got really dry, and so I ended up grazing it all year. High density, couple 100,000 pounds per acre. Very short time periods moving across that, and it just works phenomenal. It does a couple things. One, and as you guys know, it improves forage quality. and quantity. And not only that, then parasites, and I don't know where you guys are with sheep, but parasites is a real issue with goats. Like, I mean, it's just something that you will run into in a fairly serious way if you don't take active precautions. And I don't like just pumping my animals full of stuff, whatever that may be, um, especially wormers, etc. Like I just you're gonna run into trouble with that if you're consistently worming, at least from my perspective, you end up running into trouble long term. So doing that rotational grazing that way and then not coming back to a minimum of 40 days later has just been a complete game changer for me. You asked about cover crops. I would absolutely love to, and I'm actually trying to line up this year to where I'm going to plant cover crops on the neighboring fields and graze them. As of now, in this area, the number of cover crops grown is zero. Um, I know of maybe one or two organic farmers within an hour's distance that plants cover crops, but that's it. It's just absolutely disturbing.
I thought I had
So
seen, a picture last summer of you grazing sorghum. Wasn't it sorghum Sudan? Maybe it was just a new stand of hay that you
it
had to
was that.
graze.
So into that hay stand, I'd planted oats and peas as a nurse crop
That's what it
to
was.
help get it going. And so yeah, that's what you would have seen. And just phenomenal forage, by the way. Absolutely loved it. Um, if I could replicate that every spring, like yeah, like you said there, man, of grazing cover crops, I I would absolutely love it. So long story short is I'm trying to get that going, but as of now, no, I have not grazed cover crops at all, simply because there's none to be grazed. So it's gonna take my initiative of going and approaching farmers and seeing if I can plant it on my cost and then, line something up to where we can, make sure I get enough grazing out of it to make it worth it.
So on your summer grazing pasture, that's just cool season annuals probably, or a mix of grasses. Um, yeah, what is that exactly that you're grazing?
So I like orchard grass, Timothy, minute amount of alfalfa. I don't like a high percentage of alfalfa at all, and a couple really good clovers. I like Regal Gray's white clover. I promote that loud and long. Absolutely love that. We've been using that down in Kentucky and now up here where I moved to for multiple years, and I just cannot sing the praises of that good enough. Um, but that's what we plant into our established, like our just established pastures. I've started doing some, very little, but I did a little bit of like warm season stuff this past year. Just a small acreage of that. So I don't have much experience with that. Um, probably 90% of what I graze would be just, your normal cool season, tend to be cool season grasses and forbs.
So how does that work with your 40-day rotation? I guess where I'm coming from with this is the 40-day or longer rotation is super beneficial for us as far as parasites go, but it's not optimum for forage production with our grasses, with our climate here. We'd
Yep.
prefer to be more at a 25 to 30-day rotation for optimal forage production on those summer pastures. Is that maybe your optimal is a little longer, or you're sacrificing some of that for getting your better rotation for the parasite benefits? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so our area, the optimal time to come back around for optimal regrowth is 28 days for this specific area. So absolutely, I'm sacrificing some quality for parasite control. I am gaining a little bit of quantity. Um, if you follow what I'm saying, like my actually tonnage per acre is obviously going up, so that's a good thing. But there's a legitimate concern. And on that note, I'm not a cattle guy, but I actually am going to get a few cows simply to run part way through behind my goats so that I can optimize quantity and quality. So they're going to be coming through part way, because another interesting thing is cattle are a dead end host for sheep and goat parasites.
Right.
So I'm doing a couple things. I'm getting, and obviously my cattle would be minimal, not even remotely stocking rate, just to help break that up into where they're going to take some forage. Um, Obviously they eat plants different, so you're going to encourage multi-species, a lot better. There's a lot of benefits, and I'm doing it simply for my pasture and for my land. And I don't mind cattle, but that's not my passion. But that is something, and I'm glad you brought that out. That is definitely something I am aware of as far as the forage, and want to start actively implementing. I haven't done it, but I did put money on some cattle for this year, so I'm going to be implementing that coming this spring.
So do you think if in the future, I mean, I'm assuming that you're selecting for more parasite resistant goats. Am I correct in that?
Yes, definitely. I mean, that's
So
not near the only selection I'm looking for, but that's very one of the very important ones. Absolutely.
sure. So do you think that in the future, if parasites become a lower concern for you, you would probably speed up that rotation, right?
Potentially.
Yeah.
I
Because
don't have experience with it, and I don't know how that's worked, so I can't say for certain. But yes, that's a very real um possibility.
and the reason I asked that question is for with here, we run sheep, we try and stay on a much shorter rotation, so we can get our optimum forage production, and we can do it without getting too heavy of a parasite load. So then when I'm talking with people that are looking to start rotational grazing, it's always that balance of what's the best for your forage and what's going to be the best for your animals. And if you have a more parasite resistant animal, you might be able to focus more on what's best for your forage. So
Absolutely. And doing that rotational grazing that way, a lot of people don't realize huge benefits of that because they're on for such a short period. The content that they're eating that is in a parasite's range, like 4 to 6 inches off the ground, is so minimal, partially because, you're going into tall forage. And secondly, they're trampling so much of it down. They're on for just, a very brief period, day or less.
yeah.
And some of those, like I don't have enough animals to do the stocking rate that I want. So I was decreasing my pasture size and maybe moving them, twice a day. Now there comes the time issue that I work in a full-time job beside this. So to manage all this, and I think you guys, I
I
know at
know all
least
about
Leon
that.
does too. That gets to be a real issue. So as soon as I can be full-time in the goats and quit, that is going to be a really good day.
It'll be like vacation, huh?
Yeah. I mean, livestock is work. We all know that, but it sure is fun.
Yeah.
So when are you lambing? Ah, well, there you go, goat guys. There's a good one for you.
So
When are you kidding these nannies out? Like what months? Are you doing
sure.
it on pasture or in the barn?
So up here where we're at, there's no way I'm willing to sacrifice time wise to kid them on pasture. I would absolutely love it, but you know, our springs typically don't come till, we'll have snow in May. I think 2 out of the 6 years I've been here, we've had snow in May. So that's a real issue. So no, I kid in the barn. Last year I did April 15th was the when I aimed for, and this year I backed it up a little bit to March 15th, which had a few early kids. So um, but the majority of them will be, from March 15th to April 1st, roughly. So that's what I'm looking for, and then that way it gives them some time to develop, and then when they hit the grass, man, they are ready to rock and roll. And they can be utilizing that forage a lot better. Now, I love the pasture kidding in a lot of ways, but we're just not there.
So your grass production's what drives that decision. Do you consider at all what the markets are going to be doing for when these kids will be finished?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So goat markets are typically fairly strong year round. I mean, we have a couple of low spells, but they've been really good. I feed my kids out very heavy, like twice what the industry standard is, 50 to 60 pounds. I'm doing 120 to 180, somewhere in there, ideally. Now, I did sell a bunch of 80 pounders through the end of November, through the 1st of December of this past year, simply because I had a guy wanting them and he was willing to pay for them. But the reality is, I push them or don't push them according to what I want to do. And goats, another thing is goats don't grow like sheep. Like, partially because we haven't pushed for it. Nobody cares. Like, we don't have anybody. I don't know of any. Well, I know of one producer out in Idaho that is using the NSIP program with the EBVs, and that's it. Aside from me as well. I'm implementing that as well in my operation, but like, so we're not pushing for that performance like the industry in general. So like a lot of kids normally, even on some feed, would be doing good to be 120 pounds a year later. So like this year, almost the majority of my kids will be getting sold the last week of May and the first week of June, because there's a big holiday there. They want heavy kids, and I have them, and very few people do. For one, they've sold them out, and then Easter's supposedly the big thing, and yeah, long story short, Easter's overrated, but
Yeah.
as far as market wise, but yeah, so like I don't have any problem, and I don't like I'll be doing really good to be having 180 pounders by May and June. Now on full feed, I can absolutely do it. I have it limited down because I'm already pushing. Like I have 150 pounders, a fair number of them. So I can't even remember what that question was exactly. I got a little sidetracked, but yeah, long story. Oh, as far as marketing, there we go.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Like anytime in the spring, beans I sell them the following year. Like the kids from this spring, like kidding right now, will get sold May and June of 2025. Um, so no, there's not really any issue as to kidding them 2 months earlier or a month later. Like that don't really affect it too
That's
much, I guess.
that's really interesting. Like, man, that's a long time to hang on to that goat.
Yeah, it
I
is.
mean, my January, February born lambs, boy, if I don't have them gone by what, Matt, the end of July, like I'm not happy. Like
Wow.
By
June
beginning
even.
of June.
June even.
Yeah. My target
That
is
dude
to
is
sell a
big.
100-pound lamb at 4 months old. And we usually get
Wow.
right there. Some of them might be 5 months old, but they better not be in my barn much past 5 months old. Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah, we're
And
not
that,
anywhere close to that.
I mean,
So
90 to 120 days, 90 to 120 pounds is about what your good ones are going to do.
So you're essentially gaining a pound a day on those sheep, is what you're saying.
not
Not-
quite till you figure a 10-pound birth weight in.
Fine. Yeah. Fair
Yeah,
point.
But
we're below that. I mean,
three
we
quarter
have
point
some that go.
0.75, 0.85 maybe, something
Yeah,
like that.
that's pretty
Yeah.
standard for us, but across the whole flock. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, because 10 pounds, a tenth of a pound, you take that'd be 100 days. You'd be at, yeah, 8 to 9 tenths of a pound. Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. Yeah, we're not anywhere close. Now, is there some goats that do that good? I've never heard of them.
Well,
But there may be.
that's why you guys need $4 and $5 a pound for them.
Yeah, that's exactly true. There's a reason that they're priced a bit higher than the sheep, partially because, well, largely due to the fact of their slower rates. Now,
Well,
with that being said, I think we're gonna get there. I really
yeah.
do. But how soon is going to depend on the level of data inputted, the level of other serious guys. And I talked to a lot of guys that are serious about it. And I think we're on the road to getting there. But the goat industry in general is just absolutely terrible, if I can say that myself.
But the market's there.
Oh, tremendously. Yeah, the market's there,
Yeah.
and you can absolutely make money doing goats. Like I'm not saying, when I say terrible, I'm not saying market wise at all or making money. I'm saying simply the mindset, typical mindset towards goats, and just the lack of, I guess, seriousness about it in general.
I think definitely, but the potential, there's no reason that I don't think there's any reason that goats should grow slower than lambs. It's just a matter of not having selected and bred for that. I think the potential's there.
Oh, absolutely. Like since I became familiar with NSIP and I've been doing some research there, you look back, I don't even know how many years ago. In all honesty, sheep are not that far behind of what we're seeing in goats. But there was such a level of seriousness and interest in people inputting that and making informed decisions and accurate data that backed it up and selecting for the best and selling, what looks great on the hoof. That's the next thing. Like so many buy and sell deals on goats are, oh, I like the looks of this one, and there's not any information to back it up. That I 100% agree with you that I think we can be there sometime. I don't know how soon or long, but
Better
I
not attach a
absolutely
date
think you're
to it.
right. Right.
I
But I
I
definitely agree with you that we can absolutely get there. I'm 100% confident.
Hey folks, just wanted to pause our discussion here for a brief moment and tell you about the on-farm production sale that Matt is having at his farm, Glenbrook Farm in Leola. The sale is happening this Saturday, March 23rd. The sale itself starts at 1 p.m. He's going to have some registered Katahdin rams, some white Dorper rams, several Romanoff rams. He will also have some registered Katahdin ewes exposed to lamb in May, as well as some ewe lambs. Then in the morning, there is also an educational session starting at 8 a.m. There's several topics there. Matt's going to give a trip review on his trip to American Sheep Industry Expo. There's going to be a topic on carcass scanning demonstrations by Melanie Barkley. There will be a border collie herding demonstration. Dan Turner from Ewe Lamb Right Farms is planning to have a talk on lambing time. So if you're looking for something to do on Saturday, take a drive out to Glenbrook Farms and enjoy the day.
I talked with a goat guy that is importing goats from Australia, and he told me the guys he bought them from are telling him a pound of gain a day is very possible. So I haven't
Interesting.
heard how they've done for him. I think when I talked with him, which was about a year ago, I think he was just had his first kids on the ground, but um,
He has
genetics
boar
is only
goats,
one
right?
piece of it always, but yeah.
He has boar goats, correct?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I had seen a little write up by him talking about that process and how the guys over there were saying that. And I would love to follow up with him sometime, and see where he's at on that. I think that's really
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So, but I think, the genetics is only one piece of it, in
Yeah.
my experience. I always like to reference the cattle industry in this because I don't know, they just have more data available. Because you can take a Holstein calf steer and you can get some pretty impressive gains out of that steer, and they weren't bred for growth production at all.
Right.
I've heard of, I know Penn State did some, I think they were doing a feed efficiency test or something, and they were getting Angus steers to gain at 3 pounds per head per day, which
Wow.
most of the, sorry, did I say Angus? Holstein steers to gain at 3 pounds per head per day. Most of the Angus guys would be happy with those kinds of gains. So, nutrition can play a lot into it, but we need the genetics or the genetics make it easier, I should say, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Informed nutritional decisions is absolutely huge. I could not agree with you more on that. But you're going to limit yourself fairly quickly, like what we just heard. I mean, what you're seeing in sheep versus what I'm seeing in goats. Um, the difference is just, fairly impressive.
we could probably talk along. Did you have something, Leon?
I was going to change the subject. Go ahead.
Well, we could probably talk all day on the genetics thing. I think we're all pretty into that. I did want to ask you a little bit more on your market. Is that just a direct market, or are you selling at auction barns? What's that look like, as much as you want to share, and how did you get started on that?
Sure. So I try to go direct to kill plants as much as possible. Now there's some times of the year, like this end of May, beginning of June deal, that depending, there's sometimes I'll sell at auction because the demand is so strong that you have the best animals there, what they're wanting 100%, and you get a bunch of kill plant buyers right there. Guess what? You're going to get better money than them coming selling direct because they can see it, they want it, and they're going to pay within pennies of what they are making on it simply because they need that for their customer base. Whoever can, I mean, that's a really tight time of year. But yes, as much as is possible, I sell direct. I was just on the phone with multiple buyers this week talking a bunch of different stuff. Patterson's in New Jersey. You can just call him up direct and he'll buy sheep and goats whenever. There's a bunch of other ones. Brewer Meats in Indiana. There's a couple over in Chicago. There's one little kill plant right up here by me, about 40 minutes away. Some over in Illinois. And I'm constantly looking for more information on where these kill plants are because so often the gamble of taking them to auction is just not worth it from my perspective. I would say right along with markets, probably the key thing that has really affected me is understanding holidays. So the American market is steady year round. That don't fluctuate that much. But you get those ethnic holidays, that is where the American market is still going to be there. So that's steady, but then you get them holidays and it just drives prices really high. So I try to target holidays as much as possible. Um, and just do your research. Like a couple years ago, I didn't know about this um end of May, beginning of June holiday, and that varies. The holiday. I'm just saying for this year, I believe the end that holiday falls on June 17th, I believe. Um, so the holiday is a huge thing for me. Can I get steady money year round? Yeah, absolutely. There's a few low times just where the sheer amount of goats is available, but trying to capitalize on that has probably affected me more than going direct versus auction. Um, because if you target those holidays, you're going to go really good at auction as well, simply because the demand is there.
Yeah, very good. So
In the
back,
future, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
We are actually wanting to direct market though. That is actually our goal is to be getting these custom butchered and selling the meat ourselves. That is the end goal on our meat side of things. Selling high quality breeding stock and then direct marketing potentially all of our meat. Now, I don't know how that's gonna all look like. We're just getting into that this year on the direct marketing. Gonna have some available this fall, Lord willing. But that is our end goal is to cut out every single middleman and be selling that meat direct. Like I said, I don't really know how that entirely is gonna look like for us or how that's gonna all work out, but that is what we're working towards.
What I know you said you're still trying to figure out what that's going to look like, but what do you see, like how are you going to start on that? Are you going to sell, let's just say sell the goat to the customer, deliver it to this butcher shop to have it butchered, or what are you thinking on that as of right now?
How we're looking to start is get them butchered like USDA certified and then selling the packaged meat direct. So not necessarily selling the animal before it's killed, selling the packaged meat as a finished product. Now, if somebody wants to, especially to get started, absolutely we will do that. Like if you want to buy a quarter or a goat or whatever, and we deliver it to pick it up, definitely that's 100% workable. We have some contacts that we know already are wanting the meat. So, a couple goats are already essentially spoken for as far as, um, finished product meat. But there's going to probably be, and we're going to take it, kind of where it takes us, obviously. But essentially, to get started, yeah, we're going to be getting them USDA certified, killed, and processed, and then selling the finished packaged product.
And that would probably be in frozen cuts, or would it be more of a
Yeah,
fresh frozen?
frozen. Yep.
I
I
So
mean,
you wouldn't be selling the whole goat necessarily to the same customer. You're going to offer, I guess, or something like a goat steak, whatever. Somebody could
yep.
walk up to your
T-bone.
cooler, so to
Yep.
speak, and pick what they wanted.
Yep.
Interesting.
They'll be able to pick out ground meat, T-bone steak, brisket, ribs. Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
I think that's super interesting. I think that's something I would consider doing one day. Uh, kind of building my own brand, so to speak,
Yep.
of lamb in my case.
Yep.
And selling frozen cuts like that. I think that could be a really good gig to get into, and obviously it's a lot of work and a lot of logistics that play into that. But
Right.
I mean, the thing just is, if somebody wants to try goat meat, I don't really know where to send them
Right.
to just buy a goat. I don't even know what, I mean, I know what goats are, but like what cuts are preferred out of a goat. Um,
Right.
that sort of thing. So I think that's really interesting.
I didn't know you could
Yeah.
buy Billy brisket.
I
Is that
like
a
that.
thing?
Is that a thing, actually?
Yeah, you can. I don't know if it's necessarily labeled as Billy brisket, but yeah.
You heard it here first. Billy Brisket. There we go.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe that'll be one of our marketing strategies, the Billy brisket. Yeah, you can. There's actually, interestingly enough, right here in our local town, Mason City, I would say it's local, but 20 minutes away, there's a number of stores that carry goat meat. I actually think I looked it up, and if I have it correctly, there's 8 stores in Mason City, and it's a relatively small town. I mean,
Are you
decent
serious?
size. I mean, when I say small, I mean it's not like a little hometown type of thing. I mean it's a fairly decent sized little town. But yeah, it's very interesting that it actually is around a lot more than I would have first thought. And maybe it's our specific area, being, whatever we are, 2.5 hours south of the Twin Cities. Um, maybe that plays into it, but it is kind of interesting that it is quite readily available around here.
I don't even know if I could buy lamb in my local supermarket.
Wow.
Have you ever looked? Because I'm just thinking, as he's saying, like it's quite readily available. I've never looked for goat meat. I mean, I don't go
Well,
to
I
the
don't buy
supermarket
meat
to
in the
buy meat.
supermarket,
Yeah.
period. I mean,
Right.
we get our own beef
Same here.
process and pork, but I often will walk by the shelf just to look at the prices of cuts and yeah, just to see what they have.
Yeah.
See if it looks like something I would want to eat or not. How's that?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really browse the meat markets either, so I I don't really keep up with that, but just a quick online search
Interesting.
showed that they have that available. So
Hmm. That's cool.
So moving away from your marketing strategy, I just had one question back to your production system. When are you, so you're lambing, there I said it again, you're kidding these nannies here and well, right now. When do you wean?
um
Or do you
this is
wean?
a controversial subject. Um I don't wean for sure. None of my nanny kids, and being I weather everything right from the get go. I don't wean. Um I buck kids, for example, I pull at 100 days. Buck kids become viable at 120, and I'd love to see them on the mom as long as possible. I don't have any issues with the moms maintaining body condition. Now, that being said, I just listened to the podcast on a seasonal breeding, and that was intriguing. Man, I really appreciate that information. I actually think I'm going to try that on all my open does. If I have any, I say all my open does. I suspect I will. Just few younger ones, etc., that I doubt bred, and few other ones that typically I would just ultimately call right away. And obviously I'm gonna still keep record of that, but I'm gonna give them a second chance here and
Sure.
try to implement that into my system. I found that very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, like my nanny kids do not ever get weaned. They the mom weans them themselves. And then the weather's pulling them off and putting them into a feedlot. That just depends where I'm at. I would say probably around that 120-day mark is when I'm pulling those and putting them onto the dry lot. But then again, with this public land grazing this year, I may not even do that. I may, just run all the kids out with the nannies. That's just going to be yet to see
Yeah.
how that all plays out.
Gives you more grazing power that way if you can keep those
Right.
weather going with them.
Yep.
So those kids aren't creep fed then either up until then, or are they? Like there's the weather kids that you're putting on the feed lot. Were they fed prior to that? Are they creep fed
So
while they're on their
a
mom?
couple years back, no creep feeding at all. I forget exactly where I was introduced to the saliva lick feeders or who did exactly. But I started that a couple years back, and I'm very, very impressed with it. A couple things on breeding stock, it still really is an issue to me for the grain aspect, because the one thing is a forage-based animal that does well, gains well, um, performs well, will do that much better on grain. You can take a forage animal and put it on a grain system, and it'll fatten out tremendously. But I have seen tremendous setbacks from taking them on a high push grain system and trying to run it on a largely forage system. So that's my mindset. I'm not saying one is more right than the other. That's just simply my goals. But I am implementing the saliva lick feeders now on the kids. Um, I last year I did half and half, just to see, side by side comparisons. Um, I will probably do that again this year. Right now I have my nannies split into two kidding groups, so it'll work fairly nicely. I most likely will do the one group with the saliva lick feeder and the other group without, just to continue. For me, it's the power of data. Like, if I cannot see good results or long-term benefits, why continue to do it? Or maybe I'll eventually see that I'm way further ahead to put these on a saliva lick feeder from the get-go. So yeah, that's kind of, I've done half and half on the finished kids. I honestly can't tell. There's no difference in weight gains. Like the kids I have out now in the feedlot, the ones that were started on grain, the ones that were not, they're within pounds of each other. Like, as far as noticeable difference, there's very, very little. Why that is, I don't know. Um,
So at this point, you don't think that creep feeding is going to be an advantage to you from what you're seeing from the what
I'm very slow to say that, being I've only done it for 1 year.
Yeah.
I would not say that it is not an advantage. That's why I'm gonna keep on trying it.
Yeah.
The probably the Yeah, I don't know.
What are
Probably
you
the
feeding?
biggest thing.
What creep feed are you feeding? Like, what's your ration like?
So on just the creep feed, now my feedlot kids are obviously a whole different story, but just the creep feed, I'm feeding a 14%. It's called Kid Start. I think it's 3.75 of fat. It's medicated for coccidia, etc. Seems to be an overall good feed. It's not a high push feed, obviously. Um, Probably the biggest benefit I would see, and And here's one detail I failed to mention. So when they went into the feedlot, the kids that were on creep feed were heavier. Does that make sense?
Yep.
As
Yeah.
of right now, it's like they've caught up with them.
Hmm.
But originally going into it, they were the kids on creep feed were heavier kid. So getting back to my point, the benefit that I see is, and I don't know about you sheep guys, but I'd love to breed my nanny kids to where they're kidding it just over a year old. Like I don't let them, go a year and 3/4 or whatever till they get bred. So that initially heavier kid is going to give some huge benefits on the nanny side of things. So that's why, Matt, I would not say that it's not beneficial. Um, Partially because I don't have very much data to back that up. But secondly, going into the feedlot, at roughly 120 days, those kids that were on feed were a noticeably heavier kid. So that may jump me to that, I like to see at least 70 pounds before I breed those 8, 9 month old nanny kids. At a minimum, I'm just saying, like I want to see a minimum of 70 pounds. Hopefully better than that, but like I don't want to breed them before 70 pounds. So it could potentially be a huge benefit, and I'm actively using them, and actively creep feeding, and I'm gonna continue to do so until one would clearly show that it's better than the other way, and then and who knows, maybe I'll always do some of both.
Sure.
I'm not exactly sure.
So I'm really surprised by that. The fact that I'm not surprised that your creep fed kids were heavier. I'm surprised that your other goats that weren't creep fed actually caught up with them, because the thing we've seen in sheep is if we can push them right from the start, those other lambs never have a chance to catch up. So I'm really surprised by that. And I'm also thinking through how heavy you're feeding your goats. Do you know, like, I don't know, at like the 100-pound mark or something like that? Like at what point did those not creep fed kids catch up?
Due to my lack of data, I don't know exactly where that started leveling out, where they peaked out. I do not have that of I didn't weigh them enough to keep track of that. Partially because at the start I wasn't assuming this would happen.
Sure.
You follow what I'm saying? So I wasn't really aware of this phenomenon. I assume, and there again, due to the lack of data in the goat industry, I can't really find any resources to support this, but I assume there's somewhere around that 110 to 115 pound where they really start backing off. That's my assumption. And
I,
being I keep them as long as they do, that would make complete
Yeah.
sense to where those other kids would catch right up.
Yeah. So my thought with this is, and I guess first I'll ask the question, do you get any carcass data back on these goats?
I do not.
Yeah. So
I
my
would
thought
love to, but I don't.
as I'm thinking about this is, like with cattle, we would be careful of feeding those young calves, which is, a 500-pound calf that we're buying into our feedlot. We'd be careful with pushing them too hard from the start, or they just get fat. Where
Yep.
we want to take them a little slower, put some frame to them, because we're going for a heavier carcass. And I wonder if that's
Right.
not what's happening with your goats, is those creep fed goats are getting fat at a lighter weight, where with the weights you're going for, you needed more of a framey animal.
And
I,
and not creep feeding gives them the opportunity to frame out
Yeah.
before you start really adding that weight.
Yeah.
and I
That,
wonder
that
if
makes sense.
that lighter weight kid is probably finished.
Yeah.
And,
It's finished at 120 pounds. You should be butchering it, and you're taking them up. Well, I guess 120 to 180, but still, like at the 100 to 120, it's finished, and you need a heavier.
or it might have been finished when he put it in the feedlot. When you pull
Okay,
it
I'm
off,
not following you what you're saying,
well,
Leon. Can you explain?
finished as in when you talk about a steer being finished, like it has the right fat cover.
Oh,
Matt,
oh
you
yeah.
know more
Yep.
about it than I do.
Yep. I
Like we
follow
talk about
exactly
a
what you're
lamb
saying.
being finished, it has the right fat cover to it and all that. I don't know what all the technical terms are for it,
No,
but
I get exactly what you're saying. I've seen a little bit of that even with my two with the control group and in the other group. Um, my my ones that were not on creep feed, and that's a good point. If you're selling your kids at 60 to 70 pounds, creep feed is a huge benefit because it is a lot
absolutely.
more of a finished product right then. And I'm not going for that. I don't want my animal to be finished at that weight. And they're not. They're clearly not. Like they're a lot. I mean, they're not, bony, but they're a lot framier. What
Uh,
we would typically refer to as like a green cow or green cattle coming off pastures. Like they can add weight tremendously when you put it to them, but they've got the frame to hang it on versus grain fed. So that's a good point. If your market is there, which a lot of people's on the goat industry is,
Mhm.
creep feed would be a huge benefit. Absolutely a money breaker or maker, the difference whether that animal is finished because even though the goat industry in general is way behind, the buyers aren't. Like the kill plant, they know what they're buying, they know what they need, and they know what they want. Like they're not the ones behind the times. It's us in production.
yeah. Back like I just to reiterate what Matt said earlier, in lambs, the Katahdin breed for sure, and I know there's other breeds that are the same. A lot of other breeds that they have that early growth curve. That
Mhm.
if you can capitalize on that early growth curve in those lambs, you're never going to get that feed conversion again in that lamb's life. And I
And that's a
know,
fair point.
But
right?
but that's for like 100-pound lamb, because I'm thinking about this as we're talking here, is there is a bit of a market developing for what I would refer to as a packer lamb, a heavier lamb, more in that 130 or 140 pound to 160 pound lamb. And with the Katahdins and Dorpers, we're having a hard time getting up to those weights. But I wonder if we would focus more on putting a frame on those lambs, um, if that would allow us to get up to those heavier weights.
And not just be fatty butterballs.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
I assume that you're correct in that. I won't know for sure, but it makes complete sense. It lines up with what I've been seeing on my operation.
So Stan, this has been great having this discussion on the production end of things. Is there anything you wanted to add yet before we move into the feed efficiency testing and the feedlot end of your farm?
Not a whole lot other than probably on the kidding end of things here, or lambing as you guys would call it. A couple things that we like a 1.8 kids to nanny ratio. Another thing that partially because twins are they make you the most money. There's been studies done that as simply if you're just leaving them on the nanny, twins make the most money. So I really love twins. First timers, I love to see a single just because it's a little easier on it. Never after that, I like twins. However, like triplets as often as I can. I'll pull a triplet every time. I don't even whether it's a great mom or not for myself. I pull typically the smallest triplet, or if it's triplets and there's two small ones and a big one, I'll pull the big one. Simply to make it, the most for the dough. I mean the kids and the dough like the most efficient. And then I will do my best to bond that with one that has a single. Because I don't like bottle feeding. However, again, listening to that podcast, Matt, you gave me a few things that I had never implemented that I totally plan on this year if I have bottle kids. It has never worked great for me at all. So as much as it's possible, I shoot for twins. One thing I'm going to start implementing this year, I was going to last year, it didn't happen, is scanning, getting everything scanned. That way I can feed my triplet nannies with better feed, better hay. Maybe in that scenario, I would even grain them depending on my hay quality. And testing your forage, I think, is just so important. to know what you're at. And then also on the same token, I can feed my singles, a lot less, or some of my lower quality forage. So that is one thing that is going to definitely implement from here on out, that I have not been doing so far. And I think it would be another little thing that would increase my overall efficiency and money making.
So what is your preferred method for fostering kids onto another dog? What do you find works well for you?
Ideally just like a head gate in a pen, let her smell her own kid, maybe like, and I like to have side panels on it so that she can't see behind her. So pull them, and so she can, look back behind her, even though her head is in the gate, and she can see it's her own kid. Put the panels in so she can't see and add the other kid. Let her that way for 2 days, and she'll take it as her own. Another thing that I have done very little bit of, I've seen other guys doing it, is skinning. Like if she has a dead one, skin that lamb or kid and put the hide on the other one, and typically it's really really easy that way too. I would still let those in a kidding pen then. Typically I do not like kidding pens. If they go in a kidding pen, I put a mark against them, just for myself. But in those scenarios I'm great with. But yeah, probably the easiest I would say is just using the head gate and just letting them in there for 2 days, like loose enough to where she can, stand up and lay down, have hay and or straw or something that she can nibble on, some water and maybe a little bit of grain if you want. But giving them that 2 days and then letting them in a kidding pen for another day works like dynamite.
Hey, fellas, this is all really, really good stuff. Matt, anything you wanted to add before we wrap this up?
There's lots of things we could add, but I think we've covered a lot of really good topics. I've certainly enjoyed the conversation, and I hope the people that are listening will too.
Yeah, anything you wanted to add yet, Stan?
Nope, not really. I appreciated yeah, all the conversation and questions. And
Yeah, well,
I'll say this, I don't have the answers. I'm still learning every day. I love to research new information, talk to other producers, and it's still a huge learning game for me. I think every day, every week, I keep on, putting another little piece to the puzzle together and figuring something out, whether it's efficiency or ways of doing things or something. And I think that's going to benefit all of us if we can, maintain that.
absolutely. So, hey, we really appreciate the opportunity to have you on here and talk about goats for once, for something different. Glad to get an episode out about goats. So, if folks want to find you, learn more about you, where can they go?
So right now, all we have is a Facebook page, S-bar-D Ranch. So S-bar-D Ranch, look us up. If you want to reach me by email, it's stanjuber@gmail.com, or give me a call at 641-732-9271, or message me or something that way. And I will be more than happy to talk with you and discuss things.
All right, very good. Hey, there's one very, very important piece we missed, and that is that Stan is a dealer for Universal Feeders. So if you're up there in his neck of the woods and you're looking for a saliva lick feeder, there he gave you his Facebook page. He has some pictures on there. He got his phone number. Give him a call.
And the benefit here is you can see them in action. Come right out here and see them on our little farm and see what you actually think.
There you go. So thanks
Well,
again,
thank you.
Stan. Appreciate having you on.
Yep.
Good to be here.
We'll see you. So I think that's going to wrap it up, folks, for the discussion on the production end of Stan's system. And we're going to do a second episode here released directly after this one on, we're going to talk a little bit about feed efficiency and about his feedlot system. So stay tuned and come back for the next one.
Once again, this is the Profitable Sheep and Goat Production Podcast, where it's more than just our hobby, it's our bread and butter. Thanks for listening, folks. Come back and join us. as we converse with farmers and ranchers who are leaders in the industry, interview nutritionalists and veterinarians that can answer questions and offer valuable information. Got that sheep or goat question you'd like answers to, or something you'd like to hear discussion on? Give us a call at 717-310-3641. Select the option for Sheep and Goat podcast questions and leave a detailed message. Or send me an email at leon@lostcreekwholesale.net. Thanks, and see you next time. Universal Feeders, feeding your livestock one lick at a time.